Good morning. I am Marcy Delaney, and I'm the owner of Spa 131 in West Columbia, South Carolina. And I have been doing just some Zoom chats with business associates and friends on a local level. And I've just recently spread out and talked to my nephew that actually is in Los Angeles, California. And this morning, I'm excited to have my friend Linda Cimino, who lives in Brookland, New York. And once again, I am going to have to look down and make sure that I say this right. St. Francis College in Brookland. She's
Yes.
head women's basketball coach at St. Francis College in Brooklyn, New York. And I see this beautiful background. This is from your apartment in beautiful Brooklyn.
Yes. Good morning. Hello from Brooklyn, from my rooftop. It's a nice day here, and we're excited that we can get outside finally. And yeah, happy to be here, Marcy.
I am so glad to see you. Now, you and I met traveling, so we both have a love of that. We met in Aruba. And I know that you just recently came back from a trip, I think you said in Spain, and came home sick. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. As I travel a lot for work, last year alone I went to Thailand, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, Prague, Spain. I've been all over. So this past February, I took a trip to Hungary, Spain, and Vienna within 3 days. And when I got back to New York City, I got really sick. And so went to the doctors twice, tested negative for the flu, tested negative for pneumonia. They didn't know what was wrong with me. And I was really, really sick when I got home.
And at that time, we did not know anything about the coronavirus or COVID-19. They were not doing any testing for that. What was the date of that?
This had to be mid-February. Yeah.
Okay. And what were your symptoms, darling?
I was, I had no energy. I had some body aches, but I had like a fever, probably spiked at 102, 103, down to consistently like 100, 101. I was a little confused and dizzy, probably because of my fever. And I had a terrible cough. Like I had friends saying to me, like, why are you coughing like that so much? And, I'm in really good shape. I'm in good health. I don't have any health issues. So it was unusual for me to be sick. And I tried to exercise and run, and my chest was really tight. I couldn't breathe really well. So I got a little nervous, and finally my boss was like, you need to go to the emergency room. I was vomiting at times as well. So it was like a mixture of symptoms.
So you go into the emergency room. We don't know anything about coronavirus. What did they do? How did they treat you right then?
Right away, they gave me fluids. I was on an IV fluid bag probably for a week straight.
Did they admit you straight away, Linda?
They admitted me I stayed in the emergency room throughout the night, and then like first thing in the morning, like 5 a.m., I was admitted. Yeah. So they transferred me to another hospital. So I was at NYU.
Okay. All right. So they don't know anything about the coronavirus at this point. They probably had some rumblings but this was not anything that was mainstream. So tell me about the hazmat suits.
Well, after the first day, they wouldn't allow me to have visitors anymore. And all of a sudden, the nurses, who were wonderful, they came in and they were in like full like suits and like masks and plastic shields and gloves. And I was very confused. I didn't know why all of a sudden. They had just been treating me regular. And then, I woke up in the morning and all of a sudden they were coming in these suits. Apparently they had a big sign on my door that they needed to be fully suited up. They moved my roommate out. I had no roommate, which is very unusual in a hospital. And so I took a picture of the nurse and I sent it to some of my friends, and they were like, what's wrong with you? Like nobody could believe the way they were treating me, because now you see it on Facebook and Twitter and in the news. It's like, okay, common. But in February, nobody was being treated like that. You don't see nurses dressed like that. So it was very unusual.
When did you first hear the word COVID-19 or coronavirus?
Well, I knew that there was some type of virus going on in Asia because there was supposed to be a big basketball tournament in China, and they moved it to Belgrade, Serbia. So, and one of my friends was playing in that tournament. So she was originally supposed to go to China, and that's the first time that I heard there was some type of virus or something going on in China. I don't have cable. I'm not like a person that watches the news. I find a lot of my information out on Twitter. But so I wasn't really familiar with it. And when, you know, and I never actually got tested for the virus because they didn't have the tests. But once I was released from the hospital, they made me sit in isolation in my house. I missed, I don't know how many games and practices. And I was in isolation. And then when I called the doctors, you know, for follow-ups, they were like, yeah, we think you had this virus that's, you know, happening. We're pretty sure that you actually had it, even though we didn't test you for it.
So a Division I college basketball coach is missing practice. That's kind of a serious deal.
Yes, it's unheard of. All the years that I've been coaching, I missed one game, and that was when my mom had her breast cancer surgery. And I think this year I missed 4 or 5 games. And I'm very blessed that I have a great staff that was able to take over, and the players were very understanding. But it was a scary time for me. At one point, I asked for a priest in the hospital. I was really scared and nervous, and I'm a practicing Catholic, and the priest came in, and he actually got in trouble because he wasn't in a bodysuit and didn't have a mask on. So they, you know, made him leave and come back. But, you know, I asked, you know, him to sit with me and pray with me and give me communion. I was nervous. I was scared.
Well, that's interesting. You were cognizant enough to be afraid of what was happening to your body.
Yes. I mean, like I said, I exercise, I'm pretty healthy. I don't, you know, smoke. I don't have any underlying conditions. I don't have asthma. And all of a sudden I'm, you know, I'm 40 years old. I'm sitting in the hospital, and, you know, I don't understand why and what's going on. And I travel the world. I mean, I was in Africa and Thailand, and nothing really has ever happened to me. I did get sick in Africa. I had a parasite, but besides that, nothing really ever happened to me. And they actually thought that this at the beginning had something to do with my parasite from Africa, which I had last April. They thought maybe it was like, you know, still lingering in my body or something, but apparently it had, you know, nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Who do you know besides yourself that has been sick with this?
Oh gosh, unfortunately, we all know too many people here in New York City. My actual assistant coach, her father, who was a fit, healthy coach himself, he was in the hospital for 3 weeks on oxygen in ICU. He finally was just released. I've known 4 people who have passed away, all under the age of 42. One of our former players in my last school, she passed away at the age of 33. We've had probably 8 people through work related people who have passed away. I've known several friends who have actually been diagnosed, who've been, you know, haven't had symptoms or haven't really gotten sick, that have just had to stay home and quarantine. But here in New York City, it's all too prevalent. You know, I have a lot of friends that are doctors and nurses, and just what they're telling me in the hospitals, it's crazy. I don't live too far from a hospital where I was driving by one day and saw them putting bodies in a refrigerated truck. And I know they have a makeshift morgue that they're just bringing these trucks to. It's really scary here. It's like you're living in a horror movie. It really is like a movie.
So what do you say to these people that think this is overblown or a hoax? I think you have some probably powerful things to say about it.
Well, unfortunately, you always have the headstrong people that think they're invincible to everything, or rules don't apply to them, or they're going to challenge authority, right? There's, and as an educator, you always know people that are going to challenge authority. I think when it happens to them or somebody they know or somebody they care about, it changes their point of view and their perspective. And you don't hope that it happens to somebody they know. But sometimes that's the only way that they're going to realize what's going on. It's the same as like when, unfortunately for me, I don't live in a area where you get a lot of tornadoes or hurricanes or anything like that. And you always see, in the news, like these places that are devastated by tornadoes and hurricanes. And we kind of go on our everyday life like it's not affecting us. And then 2011, Hurricane Sandy came and destroyed my house. And it was like, it actually happened to me. So now I have a little bit more empathy when I hear it happening around the world to other people. So same goes as this virus. I think that people need to understand that we're in this together. It's not a thing. It's not one party versus another. It's not a religious thing. It's not a race thing. We're all human, and right now it's a human thing, and we all have to take it serious, and we have to understand that we're on the same team right now. And it's only going to get better if everybody does their part in helping.
You're in a densely populated area. New York City is very different than Columbia, South Carolina, where I am. So you have a very different perspective. I am, of course, I run a business, and I am so torn about the economic impact versus the health impact. And when do you think it's soon enough to be able to return to work?
Well, I would think that right now, New York and the cities that are, densely populated, LA, Chicago, New Orleans, the people that are having, problems, I think that the folks in these areas understand because they're seeing it firsthand. And I know people are anxious to get back to work and make a living, but I think that when you're in the area, you kind of understand. I understand that Georgia's opening up this weekend.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, so we hope, like I have friends that we've talked, like we hope it's okay. We hope that, that it doesn't spike, because that's going to help the rest of us. But if it spikes down there, then we're all like, oh gosh, that's going to be terrible for us. They're kind of, setting the tone that might happen for the rest of the country. I don't know when it's too soon to go back to work or too late. I just know that folks need to know, once it does open up, it doesn't mean you have to run out and go sit at a restaurant and eat. It doesn't mean that you have to go back to the way you used to do things. You can still
People can still stay home, can't they?
You can still stay home. You can go get your hair done and go get your nails done and then come home. You don't have to be out and about. And I think that if it's like done in moderation, I think that it'll be better. Everybody doesn't go back to work at once. If we maybe do 50%, then 75%, and then, you get to 100%. But what do I know? I'm just a coach.
Yeah,
I don't make decisions.
Yeah, you and I are not in that, above our pay grade. So talk to me a little bit about your students, your players, your seniors. I know that I assume you've been in contact with them. How are they doing? They're missing their senior year.
Yeah, we have meetings twice a week with the whole group, and then once a week with a coach and a player. So our players are seeing a person 4 times a week from our program, which I think is important, because think about this. As adults, we're anxious, we're scared, we're nervous, the unknown. Imagine being 18, 19, and 20 years old and feeling all those same things, plus missing your friends and feel like you're missing out on the best part of your life and not being, at college or having your graduation or anything like that. So I think that perspective has helped me put my own feelings aside and try to help these young people. We have a player that's in Spain. She's living more so like we are in New York. But then we have players in, the South, in North Carolina and Florida and Louisiana, who don't really understand what we're going through right now. So I think our weekly calls helps everybody see the different perspectives and how we're doing. But it is sad for the kids. But as you know, the younger people are more resilient, I think, than we are. So they'll get through it. They have the social media. We never had that when we were in college. They have the cell phones and social media. It's so easy to keep, in contact with their friends. And but I think they're doing a good job. I think it's been a challenge for them because online learning is different than in-person learning. And especially our kids, they're social. They like to be around people. They came to New York City for school for a reason. They like the city. They like people. They like entertainment. They like the lights and the noise. So for them to go home and sit on a couch and do their work is probably terribly different for them.
Bless their hearts. I do feel bad for them. And I also, this is the generation that also has lived through 9/11, and you've lived through 9/11. So maybe speak to that a minute.
My first year teaching, I was a teacher right here in New York, and my first year I was on the job probably 2 weeks and 9/11 happened. It was scary. And that changed the way we operated and did things. But then as the years went by, I think people started to forget a little bit. And I have a friend that's, you know, in the fire department here in New York City, and one of his firefighters, you know, got hurt last week and went to the hospital. And he told me that when he walked into the hospital, it reminded him of 9/11 again. He had never, he was around so much death and so, you know, so much uncertainty, you know, people just laying there, bodies just laying there. And he said it reminded him of 9/11. So that's pretty scary. You know, New Yorkers are resilient, and, you know, America's resilient, and we'll get through this. It's just, we have to have patience. You know, patience is a virtue.
That's true. And, you know, as human beings, we are very resilient. We were made that way. That's why we are who we are and how we've come so far. I know that your students love you, and I am so glad to have spent this time with you, my friend. It's been a while since we've chatted. I did communicate a bit when I saw that you were sick, and it's just been a delight to see your beautiful face.
Oh, thank
When
you.
do you see things returning to normal? Or is
Uh,
that even normal? What does normal mean?
Right. What is normal? And we probably can't go back to what we had as normal, right? But I would hope that things start to get better within a couple months. I would hope by August we're starting, I think, a few more months, and I would hope by August, or we can get back to school by September. I mean, I would hope, but I hope they open the embassies up, and then we can start traveling internationally again. You know, I'll tell you, last week I got in my car. I drove over the bridge that's right behind me. I drove downtown up the West Side Highway. I saw the U.S. Navy ship. I drove across town through Times Square. There was 2 people in Times Square on a Saturday at 5 o'clock. I drove by the Grand Central Station, and then I drove home. I didn't get out of my car. I just, you know, drove just to get out and look around and see New York City empty. It was crazy. And I came back and I wrote about it because we're living through history right now.
It's like we're in a movie set.
Mm-hmm.
Every place you turn, it's like a movie set. We're in a bad movie. We need to wake up. Get out of this. Get out of this bad dream.
Mm-hmm.
Darling, so good to talk to you. Are there any last words you would like to give to anybody, that all 12 people that might watch this video?
No, I just hope everybody stays healthy and stays well. And remember that you don't have to go out to help your stress level and your mental health. You can do things in your home, and just be healthy and stay happy there.
That's very good advice. Thank you so much, my darling.
You're welcome.